well. His name is Zhao Yang, and he's on... Hello? Can you hear? Oh, okay, just checking. Today he started a new company called Better Works, and I'm sure he'll talk about it throughout this section. Another great person here that's right next to me is Duncan Logan, and he runs Rocket Space, which is an incubator in San Francisco. Houses 85 companies now? 92 companies, so he's going to probably share a little bit about that as well. But in the spirit of being in Silicon Valley, I know we've had a lot of speakers today, a lot of excitement. In Silicon Valley, except at Duncan's office, where beer is served all day, 3 times a day, we're going to relax a little bit. You'll get some a little bit later because you need to pay attention, but they need to relax. So I brought some beer to get this up. This is very common in Silicon Valley, so I don't know if you do this in Australia, but here we have fun. We work hard. I'm sure you've seen all day long. There's a lot of energy here, but we also have a good time. I need to get the rest of the crowd out there. All right, I'll let you get started.
Okay, so welcome everyone. I don't know if Sarah knows that I'm Scottish, and the mixture of alcohol and a Scotsman is not always a good start. So this could be quite a short session before I get cooled off. So I'm actually trying to work out why I'm up here with you. I was kind of looking through your resume, and obviously you're a highly capable programmer. With Mini Life, My Mini Life, you created what's arguably one of the largest gaming platforms in the world. With Farmville, you've created probably one of the most famous games in the world. Hands up anyone else in the room who studied agriculture at university. Just me, I thought so. I did actually study farming at university. What do you know about farming?
I actually get that question a lot, and surprisingly, not very much. For us, I mean, for us, it was just, there's no kind of it kind of goes back to the original point, how do we create Farmville? There was no epiphany moment for us. Ultimately, that's why we sold the company, because we didn't know it was going to be that big. It was just, for us, it was the 4th iteration in kind of that idea. And you hear this kind of cliche from everyone, from the PayPal guys to the YouTube guys. For us, we started with one idea and pivoted continuously until we hit it. And it took about 3 years until we hit it.
So what were some of the previous iterations of the game before you struck gold with Farmville?
So we never started out as a gaming company. We basically started out as an interactive social network. So you have to take yourself back to 2005, 2006. We were looking at the landscape, and I've always wanted to create projects as well as create companies myself. And one of the new phenomena was this little social network called Facebook at the time. And the story goes, I went to some of my co-founders' graduation in 2005, and I pitched them on this idea. I'm like, Facebook is going to be big. We should take a run at it. We should probably make a better version of it, a more interactive social network. And my co-founder, while in the bar, basically turned to me and he's like, "That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard." He's like, "It's a college social network. What makes you think it's going to be big at all?" And I'm going to go work at my company. Well, instead, I basically I just kept on going at it. I started the company with me as well as 2 college interns on a kitchen table about this big. We did our first product, interactive social network, but within 3 months we launched, it flopped, and we just kept on iterating until we got to about 4 million users with that product, and we ended up realizing the retention wasn't that great, and we pivoted into what our users kept on telling us. They wanted a game, they wanted interactivity, they wanted simulation, they wanted the concept of avatars, and they wanted it connected to their existing portal, which was Facebook. You know, I mean, the Zynga and social games may seem obvious right now, but at the time they were giving us feedback, it wasn't necessarily obvious. Gaming was always kind of what they call, how do they say, it's a digital and entrepreneurial ghetto. Meaning specifically VCs won't fund it, simply because it's very hit-driven. Whereas, you know, the new kind of social games were more gaming as a service, so more World of Warcraft versus a traditional consumable media package that basically is consumed within one day, and, you know, 1 week and 1 month.
So just for people who might not be as up to speed on Farmville, give us some of the numbers that it crescendoed to. Has it peaked now? The numbers coming off? Is there a life cycle for the game?
Yeah, it peaked around November 2009. We launched the game around June 2009, and it peaked at 200 million registered users, and then registered users about 85 million monthly active uniques, and 32 million people playing it every single day. At certain points, it was anywhere from a third to one half of Facebook's traffic. And every time we released the game, we would do weekly releases of new features as well as new content. We would literally take down the Facebook platform. So if during June to November 2009, if you ever had issues with the Facebook platform itself, you probably wouldn't be. So.
And to give, this is something that's always hard to get out of people, but you know, in so many of these games, there's people using real money to purchase, you know, swords, daggers, farm animals.
Yeah.
What sort of revenue generation would a game like Farmville at the peak be developing on a monthly basis?
It's, well, this is a little sensitive area. I would say, I don't want to say it, but I would say you can find out on the Zynga S1. So, roughly. It's a really sensitive area. So it's but it would, you know, it makes. I mean, let me phrase it in terms of Zynga's S1. If you look at Zynga S1, the annual revenues is now near $1 billion per year, and near $1 billion per year, and it's entirely virtual goods. I would say 95% virtual goods. So
making $1 billion selling
nearly
lettuces and horses and cows. Yeah, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, I mean, everyone talks about virtual goods as kind of astonishment, but you can't take a look at virtual goods for the virtual goods. The virtual goods are, in one sense, a manifestation of people's addiction to kind of the game as well as their social status within the game. So, you know, on a weekly basis, when you play the game, you basically have this persistent identity. You want to create, you want to decorate, and you want to level up. These things become part of your identity within your social game, and you know, it's just one way. It's another way of consuming the game. So, and the reason why it's so powerful is if you take a look at kind of the traditional digital distribution model, which is CD-ROMs as well as kind of through retail stores, you basically had to buy this game based on reviews, right? So traditional games would be anywhere from $50 to $70. You didn't even know if you actually liked the game, and you may buy it, you know, you may return it or whatever. With Farmville, you basically, it's free to play, and as it hooks you, then as you play more, then you gradually up your spend. So for the people that don't play that much, you don't spend any money. But for the people that spend a lot, the average, well, spend can get up to $100,000 per person.
Some of the biggest gamers are spending $100,000 a year gaming. So in doing my research, I watched a video of you speaking at TEDx, which is a great thing. And there you spoke about the kind of social cocaine of gaming and this addictive character. Do you want to go into that a little bit? Because I know you've got a certain number of things which you say every game should have in its reward structure.
Right. I mean, there's nuances on why social games are much more addictive than traditional games. And it's all related to kind of about the psychology and sociology of it. So some of the fundamental kind of best practices around social games, there's a couple of them, but one of them is gifting. And the reason why gifting works is it works on human psychology to reciprocate. The reason why is I give you a gift, even though it's a virtual gift, you basically feel a human need to reciprocate back. So it's just like anything else. Charities do it. A lot of people do it, but it's another manifestation of that. If you think about kind of the reason why farming as a gaming mechanic works is you essentially have this virtual coin that's basically yours, and by investing in it, you're virtually committed. Basically, like the reason why that works is I want to kind of talk about a story through Benjamin Franklin. So let me digress for a little bit. In Benjamin Franklin, when he was more successful, he basically said a younger gentleman basically asked him why he was so successful, and he's like, are there any tricks that you can basically do to help me become successful? He's like, yeah, well, you have to network, you have to get to know people. And the younger gentleman asked, how do you do that? He said, well, the first thing you do is you ask to borrow a book from them. And the younger gentleman was very, very puzzled. He's like, I don't understand why. When I meet this person for the very first time, why do I need to borrow a book from them? And he basically said, the reason why is there's a human need. When I lend you something, through my physical actions, there's a human need to kind of, it's called commitment fallacy. So by lending you the book, I basically assume that you're a friend. And even though it's a very, very small gesture. And the same mechanic is basically at work within this social game. So there's a lot of these small nuances within the social game that essentially exploits psychology and sociology and the way the human brain works. There's like variable feedback, randomization, as well as a lot of these things. So it becomes super addictive.
So if there was anyone out there today thinking about putting together a game, and they brought that game to you and said, do you want to invest in my game? Are there kind of 4 or 5 key things that you would look for that the game must have?
Yeah, I mean, it highly depends on the type of game, right? There's social games, there's mobile games. Those are the fastest growing markets. But generally speaking, we basically want to look for is you want to look for a game that hooks you within the first 30 seconds. If you think about traditional game design, that's actually not what it's designed around. Traditional game design, if you look at consoles as well as PC games, there's a loading screen, there's menus, there's single player, there's multiplayer. Whereas in social games, the interactivity, the first kind of the new user experience as well as the essentially has to be very, very simple, and it also has to take advantage of everyone's fragmented time. So social games are really designed around 30-second session times. Whereas if you think about StarCraft, World of Warcraft, and other traditional games, they're designed around 30-minute to 1-hour sessions. And casual games like Dino Dash, puzzle games, are really designed around 5 to 10 minute session. So if you have a user experience that's very, very simple on mobile games, 1 swipe or 2 swipes, on social games, 1 click or 2 clicks, and that becomes the primary product behavior, then you have something interesting. So that's the number one thing. The second kind of couple of things are basically the way you think about your art, as well as the way you kind of interact in the game distribution. Because the number one problem with consumer internet as well as games is how you think about distribution. And now it's commonly known as, how do you think about virality? How do you think about how do you optimize virality across your games? Unfortunately, it's mostly a black art within the stream companies. But it's not just like adding invite flow, to your game. It's basically understanding kind of a sender receiver, as well as optimization, as well as kind of an entire metrics around it. So those are the 2 things: consumer first-time user experience, as well as consumer intent and distribution.
Okay. So you actually you created My Mini Life. You sold My Mini Life to Zynga, and it's while you were inside Zynga that you evolved to create Farmville. What was
that's not accurate. So Farmville took 5 weeks. We got acquired week 3 of it.
So you already started. Right. Okay. So working within Zynga, did that give you a bigger platform do you think that helped in the success of Farmville, or do you think Farmville would have been a success just from off My Mini Life?
So I think Zynga definitely helped with kind of the distribution of it. When we basically came in, I think Zynga had about 15 million people playing it every single day. So ultimately, it's one of those things. Could we have been successful with or without Zynga? I have no idea. But at that time, it was a very fragmented time. People were shifting toward isometric flash games, and it was a pivotal transition within the social gaming area. So traditional social games were very, very primitive. So basically, werewolves as well as vampires, very, very simple kind of games, and everything was transitioning over. And Zynga basically had to make the acquisition to go against Playfish. So will we have been as big as Zynga? Will we have been Zynga? I don't know. But I think if we were independent, at the very least, we would have been a Outstar, a Playdom, or a PopCap. And we can't tease out the history. So.
All right. So working in Zynga, were you working with Mark on a daily basis, or were you left to get on with your own stuff, or how much interaction did you have with that?
Yeah. So at Zynga, all the different studios are basically work as small business units. So SBUs, or individual autonomous organizations, and based on the performance of the weekly roadmap, it was highly metrics driven. So on a weekly basis, we would report on progress, content features, as well as daily active needs, monetization, as well as all the nuances of what's happening within the game. So you can manifestation of the beer. So, but yeah, fairly regular in the
now post-Linger, you hooked up with David Lee, Ron Conway, and SV Angel to do some advising there. What's it been like working with those guys?
It's been good. I got introduced to Ron Conway as well as SV Angels. I would say in early 2010. I immediately hit it off with them. They're just a very solid group of guys. And for people that don't know, Ron Conway, SV Angels were the early investors in Google, Facebook, Twitter, Zappos, Admiral, a series of other companies. And eventually they started, how do I say it, a series of their consumer internet as well as gaming investments. They started asking my advice for it. And then I started informally advising them on both potential investments as well as their existing companies, occasionally dropping into their existing companies to advise them. And then we made the relationship formal with, I think it's the third fund, but I forget. So I basically, so it's been great. So it's a lot of world-class companies, and it allows me to kind of refine my own kind of financial investments as well.
So behind every great entrepreneur like yourself, there tends to be one or two very lucky people who manage to see your spark early enough. Who have been investors in you that you think have come out best? Are there any dorm mates, roommates who are now sitting laughing away from the bank because of your success?
Yeah, I mean, all my previous co-founders, I've known them for about 10 years now, but 6 years ago, when I convinced a couple of them to quit their hedge fund jobs, their existing gaming jobs, as well as their one I convinced to quit undergrad. His mom wasn't too happy with him. But yeah, I mean, those guys, as well as my early investors. Our early investors and advisors basically came from YouTube, and YouTube it comes from this network that's nebulously called the PayPal Mafia, and so like basically 6 to 7 different guys basically helped us with business connections, financing, advertising, scaling, and it helped us formalize a lot of our business experiences. And that was incredibly helpful. As well as our other investor was the first investor in Etsy, ETSY, IMBU, and he was a 6-time entrepreneur as well. So yeah, I mean, definitely that's the unique thing about Silicon Valley. The informal advice that you would get from a lot of these people to kind of guide you exactly in the right direction.
That's great. So you're now giving back in the sense of you're now investing in startups as well. One of the startups I like a lot, I don't know if it's your own investment or it's SV Angel, is Hitmonk.
Yeah.
It's
both.
It's been both?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, hands up who's heard of Hitmonk in the audience, Y Combinator class of last year, I think it was. Do you want to give a very quick snapshot of what it's doing?
Yeah. So, what Hitmonk is doing was they basically took a look at the travel space, and they were basically traveling all over the world after Reddit, and they wanted to kind of plan travel across multiple cities, and if you were to plan travel, say for example, from Miami to New York to Chicago, it would be a huge pain in the ass. Excuse my French. And the reason why is you basically have to create multiple browsers. You have to line up